Welcome to the lecture series from the International Guild of Occult Sciences College and Research Society. We're going to cover today is the science of magic, or the occult sciences. It's really important to define this. A lot of people talk about that and they want everything proved to them. Recently, a black magician, was afraid to call himself what he really is, which is a scumball Satanist, had the nerve to say he wants everything proved to him, and that, he can't believe in other things until it's proved to him. And it's amazing how they want to take their little mumbo-jumbo nonsense, their psychic babble from the dark realm of the snail's anus, and want to somehow make their system somehow a science. Well, there is the science of magic. It's called the occult sciences, and this terminology is not new. It's been used for quite a period of time, and those who follow it see magic, and of course that's a primitive term, just like psychic is, psychic power, psychic. All these things have been pretty much thrown in the mud, stamped on, shitted on, ran over, blown up with nuclear bombs. They've just been destroyed of what they mean. So the actual use of occult science, which has been around and not used too much, needs to be used again. And magic is a science. There is a science to magic of how things manifest for you, what energies are produced, how they're projected out. The whole structure of doing it is a science. There are protocols for it, just like there is in scientific studies that have protocols to produce a certain effect. In general, science as we know it, the joke that it is, the copy of the occult sciences it is, I should say, when you start getting into it in depth and reading the basis of it and what they're doing, is based upon the fact of repeating something to prove it. But that's only on a certain level. That's only part of science. When you get into science on the higher level, common science, it's all about theories, which is pretty much philosophy. Well, I think because my observation based on an educated opinion tells me that this or this may be happening. This happened. The world, the entire universe was created by the Big Bang, we hear, which is being disproved again as well, as not being the case. Most likely it was a big stretching. The universe is pulling apart. So if something happened, it happened from stretching of the universe, not from this big explosion. But again, it's a theory. Nobody knows that. Nobody was there at the beginning of the time to witness this. There's no film of it. There's no reporters there. There's no written down things, like pretty much everything we know. Science still is based on 500-year-old Newton physics, and Newton came up with these basic ideas, just like philosophy still goes back to 2,000 years ago to the Greeks. Things have not changed. Even the theory of the atom and molecules and so forth go back to Greek thinking 2,000 years ago. It was a theory then, and then supposedly science proved it. So, we really haven't come very far. Common science tells us a lot of things of what they think, but it's everything is based in a key word that people seem to just ignore. And don't pay attention to what that meaning is, because when you put the word science and theory together, people don't hear theory. Yeah, it's scientific theory. Okay, so what you really heard was that it's proven fact. Science is fact and theory is proven, when it is quite the opposite. A theory is just a theory, and you can look that up for the exact literal Webster Dictionary understanding of the word, but a theory is something that is basically a guess, an educated guess. And all science is an educated guess as a general rule. If you want to be able to classify what science is, well, it's an educated guess and nothing more. But people want to say it's fact, but they look at fact of science from a very primitive level. Well, if you combine salt with nitrogen and you add in sodium and magnesium in there, you're going to get this compound which will do this. Well, yes, this is true, and that's a type of science. And of course, we have the science of making something, the science of making plastic. You know, it's made from oil. You do this process, you heat it, you add this to it. Yes, and this is what people confuse science for. But how everything works, what gravity is, time and space, time in general, rotation of planets, where everything comes from. When you get into the formation of matter, you can say that X and X makes plastic, but what is that? What is oil? What is it made from? What is it broken down into? If you look at, people think steel is, very hard. You can't punch your hand through it. A lot of times you can't even shoot a bullet through it. But when you look at it under a microscope, what does a piece of steel look like? Well, a piece of steel looks like basically a screen, like a screen door that you have on the front of your house that lets air in. That screen door is what actually it looks like, but it looks like it from a very tiny, tiny level. So, nothing is as it appears, and science tells you that they know everything, but they can't do anything. There are billions of pages written about cancer and what it is and how it functions. The problem is that really bearing on anything? They don't know how to cure it. They don't really know what causes it. They know cause and effect, meaning, well, this is what cancer looks like. This is what cancer is doing. But why is it doing that? And they certainly can't control it, stop it, or cure it. But they know so much about it. And they're going to tell you about that. And they're going to charge you a lot of money if you have it to do their practicing on you, to do their theories of what works that 99% of the time don't. So everything in science is a theory. So the scientific theory is an educated guess. It is not proof in any stretch of the method, in any stretch of the imagination. When we get into the structure of things, zero-point energy, the energy that is held between matter, and everybody says now the universe is made up mostly of empty space. Well, it's not really empty space, it's an energy space, or they call this zero-point energy. That's the energy between matter, which makes up most of everything in the universe, is made up of energy. But this energy is so subtle, so finite, so subatomic that it's not a physical matter. And then, of course, there's the quantum physics things, which basically is the occult scientists' explanation of how everything works and how life works and how you can affect people. And this is basically quantum physics, which is now accepted by every scientific mind out there. There is I'm sure people have heard about this God particle now, which is supposedly the particle that creates all other. It's basically, as I've always said, that, and the Guild states that God, as we know it, is a manifesting energy. It's a building energy. It's not this little man in the sky who has any interest in you. It's a God, or the God force is this creative energy that keeps making and building and destroying and putting and causing things to happen and to create new planets, life forms, and everything else. This is a process that is like cancer. It's out of control. That's what the God force is. But they claim that there's the God particle that creates matter. This is this creative force I just talked about. They claim they have identified it. They've identified it by not being able to see it, not being able to register it, not being really even knowing it's there. Nobody has ever been able to figure out what it is. They claim they have found in this extremely subatomic particle levels. You're talking about at such low levels that it's hard to comprehend, that they've found the actual poo of this particle. That's right, the poo. They have found the death of this particle's residual matter somehow, which only lasts for And again, you can't even, the amount of time, there's a particular scientific term for this, so short of a period of time. They claim they have found this, and every trillion colliding particles that they do in the collider research that they do in the Hadron Collider in Switzerland, that they find this very nebulous every trillion or so times they use it. And of course, many people disagree with this, but there was some substantiation of this at some really ridiculous level. If I was to give the kind of substantiation that they talk about and base that into proving occultism, I would be able to prove everything about occultism from beginning to end, and there would be no question of it. And everybody would be patting me on the back as a fact. The scientists do this, and they're taking that this is the word of the end. This is it. This is perfect. They could never make a mistake. You know, they work really hard on something for many, many years, 30, 40, 50 years, and they make sure they get a result at the end, regardless of whether that is verifiable or not. And it really isn't. So to think that you found this subatomic particle poo and that this confirms what happened here is pure monkey-headed scientific theory. It proves absolutely nothing. And they've written lots of books on it. Of course they have. So here we get back into this theory and this supposition. And of course, there's lots of theories and suppositions like that, much more densely provable and followed in occult science. The science of magic, you do certain procedures to manifest certain results. And we've tested this enough with our proven hardcore systems, formulas, and practices by thousands of people that get results. That is called scientific proof. That is repeating something over and over. That's what science is about. You have to repeat something. You have to give somebody basically a course or instructions, tell them to do something, and this something will then give you a result. Now, that's pretty much what every magic course does, or every magic book. You light a candle, you do something such as that, you use a doll, you use a particular sigil, and you call upon a particular spirit, and something happens. Now, the point is there's enough people that are having similar things happen to make it scientific fact, especially when you start understanding what scientific fact really is. And scientific fact really is not, how to make metal, how to make chrome, what plastic is, as I just mentioned, what chemicals it takes to make a plant grow. Yeah, these are parts of science, but these are the crude part of science. What it actually manifests and the reason why it manifests gets into these very nebulous areas, which they say is 100% fact because, to a certain extent, they have to justify their job. And there's all sorts of fascinating theories, the strings theories of quantum physics, which these are what the whole universe is made of. Quantum physics, as I mentioned, just really is the restating of occult philosophy, which the entire reality is a web. Everything and everybody is connected, and that this connection can then be affected by anyone who's in that web or anything in that web. Well, that's basically how occultism works. The point is you're connected to something you're trying to affect or draw into you is part of that web. And that part of that web is a spirit, and part of that web is that person who you're trying to affect with the magic, or yourself, if you're trying to affect yourself with that magic. When you use a picture of someone, well, that's a connection to the web of where that person's at. The vibration in that picture is the vibration of that person who's connected on this web, and when you try and affect them using the picture, you're connecting to them, to the picture, to the web, and to the person physically and having results done. Now, that would be a very typical scientific explanation that scientists would spend their whole life and their very expensive PhDs and doctorates and numerous articles and books they've written. This would be, if it was a scientific matter, would be proven as a fact and totally accepted. Yet when it comes to something that they are not experts in and don't want to delegate their power to or feel subordinate to, They never give credit to anybody else. And of course, this kind of freewheeling individualism, personal empowerment is not what the bigger picture Black Lodge wants to do. That's part of the Great White Brotherhood, part of the Guild's White Lodge philosophy, and part of the philosophy in general of the right-hand path. While the Black Lodge wants to keep you stupid and dumb and controlled so they're in power. And they don't want to share anything metaphysical or magical. They want to keep it to themselves. So having these kind of nebulous, nonsensical babble done by the scientific community makes everybody feel really important. And of course you need thinkers like this. You know, Albert Einstein said the best type of scientist was a metaphysician. And rightfully so. You have to understand energies, how energies work. And that's what the occult science is about. It's not some mumbo-jumbo name, the Baphomet, Satan, angels. I mean, these are all terms for types of energies. A candle's just not a candle. This is an energy source. You've got this fire energy. You've got this color vibrating energy that's sustained. So, you know, you're using, if you're using oils and incenses and sigils, all of these are energies. They all, it's like a compound of a formula. You know, we talked about making, let's say, plastic, which is a combination of ingredients to make plastic that's then processed. Now, that's a scientific fact, supposedly. Well, a magical ritual is the same way. You have the candle, the fire flame, the oils, you have sigils. You're combining these into a pot of energy that is then projected out to manifest something, or making that plastic. So instead of having that physical plastic in front of you, you're having the physical ritual done that manifests something for you. Now that's the science of magic. That's important because we've had enough of this nonsense going on, of this ridiculing of occultism because of a lot of the goofballs in it. And of course this has been done deliberately because they want to depower you. They don't want people with effective magical systems. They certainly don't want individuals. They want it kept to themselves. But enough of that being poorly explained as some goofball mumbo-jumbo from some goofball teenager wearing upside-down pentagrams and wearing black and thinking he's some sort of demonic gargoyle or whatever the hell is in these morons' minds. And the worship of complete deviants like Aleister Crowley. And the following of all the black magician losers like the Temple of Set People and the Church of Satan. You know, all of these things which people lump into occultism. And if you're an occultist or you're doing magic, you're a Satanist that's killing animals and killing babies and worshiping the devil. Now, unfortunately, this criticism, which has been going on for the last 30 years, which initially only really covered a small percentage of the deviance into occultism, has come to fruition now, to the point that this is how most people operate. Or a large percentage of the occult public now is into this black magic, thinking that somehow it's so powerful, when it really isn't at all. They're living in another false mythology. But I've done a talk on that, so I don't want to get into too much more in detail on that. If you want to see that, see the talk on Black Magic Satanism Overview. So it gets labeled all this, particularly because there's a problem with terminology as well. If you start using terminology like psychic and magic, right off the bat, whoop, there goes their ears are closed, their eyes are closed, and they're running in the other direction. You know, this is why when serious studies was done by the government and the military in particular, when they got into basically a psychic practice called, renamed remote viewing to make it sound scientific, when all it really was is psychic projection. It's you're just basically psychically viewing what's going on. It's a psychic process. But if you would say that this is a psychic process, people would laugh at it and walk away. Oh, that's witchcraft, stupid stuff. Because, psychic powers have now been labeled because of the recent overuse of it as goofy psychic phone readings on TV and nutball New Agers that don't produce anything, and basically an ignorant lunatical fringe. And to the extreme, it's actually used as this is an energy from Satan. So it's a very poorly used term. Bioenergy, which is the term the Russians used when they did their major research, really is a much better descriptive term. It is a bioenergy, and there's nothing supernatural about it. And it's important that we stay away from supernatural terminology. Paranormal, supernatural. All these terms really take things out of human existence. And if you start saying something is supernatural, it means it's not part of the natural world, which there is no such thing really not part of the natural world. If it manifests here, if your typical, quote, psychic power practice is working, or you're using psychic powers, it is not supernatural. It's part of the natural world. And you need to understand that, because that's how scientific people think. And we do offer a link to where there's under the debunker information booklet to the main skeptic, Michael Shermer, or however you pronounce his last name, who has a talk which I find very interesting, so you can see how the other side looks at you, that any of this supernatural stuff doesn't make any sense at all, because there's no such thing. There's no supernatural world, because you'd have to be existing in another reality. If you're in the natural reality and it's working for you here, you're bending a spoon, you're doing whatever it is that is psychically based, that is then a natural part of the world. And that's what it is. There's nothing supernatural about anything occult. There's nothing supernatural about PK powers that can teleport you, bend spoons, manifest whatever, control other people's minds, and plant thoughts. Whatever it is that you're doing is not part of some supernatural reality. It's part of the natural reality that you need to understand and learn how to do. So if you are having experiences that are only in your mind and only manifest within a reality that nobody else sees, in typical fashion, in terms of scientific understanding and the understanding of the human mind by the so-called scientists of the human mind, that is considered schizophrenia. You are seeing things and experiencing things that are not there. You are mentally ill. And it's true, if you see these phenomena, that would be the problem. The point is, that's not what it is. It's occult sciences, and things are manifested, and other people can see it, and these have been proven by scientists for a very long time now, in all sorts of different studies. And it is far from something that is delusional or problematic. There are people like that. Of course there are. Just like a lot of scientists are delusional that think that they've found the poo of something that then is the God particle. That's very delusional, because nothing is really there. Yeah, but it's based on all this information and a bunch of other people agree with it. It doesn't matter. It's not there. It's not provable. So it's delusional. So the same thing can be stated there. But it's interesting, and I think there's a legitimate gripe by skeptics for that. And I fully agree with that. It is not a supernatural phenomenon. It's part of the natural world. It doesn't mean that everybody can do it. I can't hit a 110-mile-an-hour baseball that so many other baseball players can be. I can't run a marathon that so many other people can. I can't figure out advanced mathematics like so many other people can. That doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Well, that's a supernatural skill. Yeah, you got to be some sort of weird god or something. Well, no, you have to be trained. So, if I was trained to run a marathon, I'm sure I could run it. And that goes with everybody. So the point is that that is not the reality that we're talking about here. So the point is, people can be trained. The military showed that they can take pretty much some of the most conditioned, stupidest people in the world, which are the military, these little lopstick, do-what-you're-told cretins, government murderers, and have actually taken these military goons and trained them to do one of the most bizarre things that there is, and that's to function in this bioenergetic field realms. And it's fascinating that they just took regular people. And they've proven this time and time again. They've taken regular people. Some of them not. Some of them have had experiences. McConnell, the famous remote viewer, supposedly remote viewer 1, had a near-death experience and then seemed to have gained these psychic powers, which is very common. People that have some sort of brain injury, some sort of traumatic experience seem to be psychic, or somehow had contact with some aliens. This is classic of how people somehow have abilities. But in general, they've taken average people, and then they've trained average people once they left the military in these techniques, and apparently anybody can do it. They've taken news reporters who did interviews and were trained for 10, 20 minutes. So it's something everybody has. It's in the natural world. It's a natural ability, but you have to learn how to do it like every other skill everybody learns. And this could be done, and it's not being done for a lot of reasons, and the reasons basically involve the fact of controlling mankind, and those who are in control, the Black Lodge, Illuminati, New World Order types, do not want individuals who are empowered, and they don't want people teaching people who are empowered. So they deliberately put in false organizations. They've taken over occultism. They have supported organizations that who make sure that they are failures by giving you bad information, bad, crappy psychic magic play machines. All this stuff is junk. They've pushed this black magic on the public so they can control you and make you deviants and freaks, and isolate you. This is all part of it. Now, if they would have, and there are many, many, again, people think this has never been studied, and it has been studied. The Stanford Research Institute for many years, these are the famous people that did their initial put off in Targ, the two scientists involved there, have done research and conclusively proven the existence of bioenergy and its power to affect and to be transported to other places and brought back. All these things have been proven and proven quite well, especially considering they had very small amount of money was really spent on this compared to so many other things. I mean, we spend billions and billions, who knows how many, maybe hundreds of billions of dollars a year are spent on cancer research for over 50, 60 years now with zero results coming whatsoever. And in so many illnesses, it's the exact same thing. Nothing is coming. There is no breakthroughs, and whatever breakthroughs apparently there are never seem to come to the public. So, if this was done in a proper fashion, and there should be a national institute that studies this, finds people, learns to train people to develop these skills. And this is outlined in my article on the debunkers and their really hidden agenda and what needs to be done, but it bears reporting here because this is all part of occult science. Because you can train people to do this. You can train people to bend spoons. And we need to have a place where we'll get people who initially are talented, but also we need to work out training programs, and we need to assist people in every possible way to amplify and manifest these results without actually making fraudulent results or assisting these people to commit fraud. The Black Lodges went so far as to actually place fake psychics and people who claim they have power, place them in places that there is research being done to trick the scientists so that science will never investigate anybody, because who wants to be made look like a fool if somebody produces power and you say, well, this guy apparently did it and you were tricked as a scientist? Well, your entire career is right down the toilet. Why would you possibly get involved in something that is so critically looked at, so problematical? For what? to endanger your entire career. But I mean, that's the extent that the Black Lodges went against these things, and how their whole hidden agenda is all part of this. But we need an institute that does that, that pays people to come there, that tests them, that helps them prove the ability they claim they have, to whatever extent it takes, without forcing results or committing any type of fraud, obviously. And this would all be filmed. There would be plenty of people watching it. So there would be no possible way to be tricked in any way. And there really isn't. This stuff about these unamazing Randy who comes out and states all these things, that it's so easy. It isn't easy to trick somebody ultimately if you're doing real research, because you're not going to let the people handle and touch things the way that they do. And a lot of these results that people claim didn't happen because they were somehow, I mean, you read Unamazing Randy's description of what could be done, and it's to the point that it's laughable. To the point that there was a light switch wire going from the outside of a room into the room where the psychic subject was. And of course, the subject somehow manipulated that, and somebody was able to feed information through the light switch. And of course, you had time to do this and time to go in there and ways to figure all this nonsense out. I mean, this is the kind of ridiculousness you get down to with these people who can figure out 1,000 devious, tricking ways of fooling people, which is their job, and then tries to tell everybody that this is common. Yes, we know you're illusionist liars, and it's impressive how easily the human mind is tricked, but it's not that easy. And what you see on TV is very contrived. There's a lot of camera tricks. There's many, many failures. You only see the ones that work. So when they trick and things go well, they may have done that 25, 30 times, but you only see the one that went the best. So that is really what has to be done. We need to develop the human consciousness, not hook up machines to it and think we're going to have some sort of easy fix matrix reality. Because the minute you do that, you're passing control over to whoever runs those machines. And machines can be easily affected through a whole bunch of different ways. So all these things are quite interesting. And every time the human mind reaches levels of development and higher stages, it's constantly put down and dismissed. And those in charge are scared of it. They don't know what to do with it, which is another problem. If we don't have an institute where people specialize in this, where there are occult scientists there that know what they're doing, and we don't develop people with interest in these areas, we're never going to get to these levels. And people are going to continue banging around life with some natural abilities that are never amplified or never known how to use correctly, and getting nowhere, when we need to have people that can develop these inner abilities to do things. It's gotten to the extent that because medicine and healing is so expensive, that the big latest thing in scientific research, if you can actually even call that, is the placebo effect. And the placebo effect deals with the fact of giving you a substance that doesn't work and seeing if it works for you anyway, just because you're told it works. I mean, this is a pretty evil process that scientific research does. If you have cancer, there's 10 of you, 5 of you are given drugs that work, and 5 of you are given drugs that they know doesn't work. So they're basically letting you die. Very sick. It doesn't have to be like that. That's very poor scientific process anyway. Either something works or it doesn't. And the fact that science itself knows that it doesn't work if it's just a sugar pill. So they know that's not going to work, and somehow it's going to work for you because you're going to make it work. And even if it kind of works for you initially, and I've tested this on myself and watched other people, yeah, everybody thinks something works for them for a period of time, maybe 30 days, maybe more. But when it finally, after a period of time, when you lose that psych up and that wanting it to work because you want to be better, you want to function, you want to do everything, you crash. And a lot of scientific studies don't go past that. They don't look at long-term results. So if you can call that science, that's bad science, but that's common science. So they've got to the point, and most of the time, particularly in the 70s, doctors would physically laugh at you if you said your mind could affect anything. And I've talked to doctors then, and they did, including saying vitamins were poisonous. So, and these were top physicians at UCLA. So it was all joke. And then all of a sudden studies came out that some kid was cured himself of cancer by picturing and thinking the destroying of the cancer cells. And more studies came out that the mind was affecting survival rates. And all of a sudden, this starts to have credibility. That for some reason or another, that the mind can assist. And now the placebo effect, which they even went to to get away from the horrible, ridiculed aspect that they're involved in, the bad science of actually tricking somebody. They've actually told people that this pill you're going to take, it will to cure yourself of this problem, but it is just a placebo. There's nothing in it. Now, I'm assuming the people taking this, whether they understand that, are thinking to themselves, oh, come on. Not only won't this possibly work, but you're really giving me something, aren't you? That's what they're thinking inside. Just like everybody thinks nothing will happen to them. Every motorcycle rider thinks they're never going to get into an accident, it'll be somebody else. And that's how the human mind works, because the human mind generally works from this positive aspect. You know, people talk, well, you got to be positive. You normally do that. What's the problem? That's just nonsense. So people taking this now, and they're getting amazing results. People with pretty much diseases they've had for years and years, chronic diseases, somehow getting cured and alleviated to a large degree. Even people supposedly with chronic pain, all these things, they're giving them placebos, and they are working to a fantastic extent. Well, what is going on there? Well, if that is occurring, and they claim it is, then it's based purely on the mind creating this and changing physical matter. Because these people have verified, these are not hypochondriacs. These are people with verifiable long-term illnesses, some extremely serious. So if the mind works to that degree, and it's working the fact of just taking a sugar pill, because that's kind of like doing a ritual every day. This is why I stress do rituals every day. Well, it's like lighting a candle every day and sending that manifesting field energy, keeping it up. Well, when you take a pill every day, 2-3 times a day, what are you doing? You're making a little mini ritual. Yeah, that's working. Channeling my manifesting energies there. And this is the all-important mental aspects of things, which you don't know how much is mental. But you got to remember, mental is not just connected to your own reality base. You're connected to these streams of energy that you pull energy in. You're connected to spirits. You're connected to that. So it's just not the brain. It's all sorts of energies. As we know from quantum physics science now, which says the whole universe is connected with all these things. So you're not just connected to your own being. You're connected to everything in the universe. And that ain't my statement, that's quantum physics. And like everything that I state in all of these lectures and else I go through, I give you connections to people who will give you their full books that have written things like I say. So it's not my opinion alone. There's plenty of other information out there that you can read that will give you similar conclusions that I come up with. Or you have a chance to make your own mind up. But here we go back to the educated opinion, which is important, but is not everything. But people need guides, and that's what a guild is all about. That's what a mystery school is all about. These are the only guides to non-biased occultism. Everybody else is a business. We are a teaching and research society. There's a big, big difference there. So, if the mind is that powerful, if it's able to do this, we should be taking billions and concentrating on this. Who can do this? What do natural healers have? Why are they able to heal people? Why do people heal themselves? Why is that kid able to kill cancer cells and somebody else isn't? Well, we need to research this. It's right there. But as long as we have the Black Lodge and all these critics saying, well, this is just nonsense. What do you mean it's nonsense? We're doing scientific study after scientific study for the last 100 years now that has proven the reality of these bioenergetic fields in and without the human body. There's bio-universal fields, biospirit. These all is where bioenergies are connecting with these energies out there. So if this is real and we're getting these kind of impressive results, then doesn't this warrant study? Serious study? And if the brain is causing that, if it's causing physical changes within your physical body, then what is the limit to a properly trained and amplified person working on that? Is that the end to all disease? Is anything able to stand up against that? Well, why aren't we spending time investigating this? Well, you'll find out the answer to that when you read the debunkers and the skeptics and their hidden agenda and their attitudes in general. So they have agendas. They're really bad scientists pushing an agenda for big business. But you get all the details there and what they're really into and who they really are and what's going on there. Talk about non-scientific frauds. But listening to that actual talk by Michael Shermer will give you a really good idea of what their opinion is in their hard line. But it also doesn't make a lot of sense. And it also is quite devious how Shermer talks about, well, if it is, he gives himself a big out. He said, well, these could exist, but it certainly wouldn't be supernatural. It would be in the natural world, like I told you. So basically what you said is wrong when I said what is right. So this guy covers his ass in every possible area and is a questionable person in general, again, with his years of being a born-again Christian, most likely a Mormon, since he went to a Mormon college, Pepperdine in Southern California. It's very strange. So I don't know what's going on there, but it's again, you look at these things, and a lot of things don't add up. But it's a fascinating world of research. But this is all part of cult science, and the fact is, this can all be proven. We now have a proven study that the mind changes physical matter within the body. It cures illness. It's proven now by scientists, not by occultists, but by medical science. What are we going to do about that? What? We're going to invest $10 billion in a pill somewhere. That is some toxic drug, because there's no money in having people cure themselves of their own mind. We have to pay some drug company. They have to make billions, and they've already admitted that they sell products that make you sick deliberately. They put toxins in drugs to make you sick, vaccinations in particular. They've already stated that they know that antidepressants didn't work from day one, that there was no science behind it. We were just crap, and they made $50 billion off of them. So we're going to give more money to them to come up with some sort of toxic substance that kills people. So they can make a lot of money because they're all part of the Black Lodge. Well, that's what's happening, people. It's time you wake up and get out there. It's time to get behind the occult sciences and get away from all that other nonsense that you've been involved in. It's time to bring occult sciences to the forefront, because that's what can solve problems. That's what everyone needs, and that's what has to be done. Yet the people in these fields are attacked on every single level to stop them from doing their work. Well, the occult science is science. It is the science of magic. It's all explainable, it's all provable, and it's all there. And if the time and money was there to do things correctly, every time these are tested in a real scientific manner, not just these ridiculous claims of this $1 million prize done in a whole rigged system by people they know will fail, who are taken in and basically traumatized. And I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of other things are going on as well, including the use of technology and forces against them on a psychic plane. This is all nonsense. When it's done in by scientists in a proper manner, um, amazing things and results. And individuals experience these things as well. The classic joke about spoon bending, well, they've had spoon bending parties forever, and people have been able to not just make a little lop over spoon like you see on a typical demonstration, but twisting and everything else. All done by the mind. And this has been witnessed by generals and by politicians and by all types of scientific people, and individuals have been able to be trained in doing that, including doctors and everything else. So, all of this can be proved. They don't want it to be proved because it's like anything else that you can't meter, tax, and charge for. The benefits to society from this, I should say, to the money-making control factors of society, the people that benefit from your pain and slavery, don't see any benefit for it. Yet the benefits solve all the problems of the planet Earth. Just like there's so many ways to generate natural energy that isn't even funny. There's huge amounts of natural gas all over the place, and this natural gas makes itself all the time. You can make natural gas. Natural gas is put out from any place that's a rubbish dump. The gas comes out of it naturally because things are always breaking down. Obviously, hydrogen, which has been around for over almost 150 years now, can solve all our problems very easily. It's there. It's ready to go. 1, 2, 3. Very, very simple. It's all there. We don't need 0 point trying to figure out how to do these complicated drawing of energy out of the 0 point energy of all. We don't need that. We have everything we need now. We basically just need hydrogen generating plants and electric cars. That's it. It's done. We're gone. We don't even need to build hydrogen cars per se, even though we should be transitioning into that. We can generate clean, pure energy using hydrogen power without having to go through all the problems of stations and accessibility to this fuel, which is the big excuse. So it's all there, just like the occult sciences are there and proven. We have proven systems. While we publish a lot of different things, our core systems are everybody's into evocation. The core books where all evocation came from, which is really a proven technology, comes from the Red Dragon, the art of commanding spirits. It's all there. The advanced psychic systems in the Tibetan mind power system, and the hardcore actual practices in the basic witchcraft sorcery course are all there and proven. People use these in a occult science manner and are trained properly. They don't fail. It never fails for anybody who follows through. It only fails for people that don't use it properly. So the occult sciences are here. The science of magic is here, and it works, and it needs to move on to that next level, and we need to start pushing these ignoramus scientists that want to come up with their fairyland theories off to the side and being replaced by people who can manifest something as well. And while all these theorists are all well and good, and certainly I have no objections to having that type of thought, we need to get people in there that also understand what's happening as well and can manifest from it. And it goes on and on and on from there of moving into this. But all these theories, as I said, are just a carbon copy of what occult scientists have been saying, which goes back to occult science goes back to all the original mystery schools, the Greeks, the Egyptians, the Atlanteans. All this really goes back to them. That's what was taught when the great societies fell over the time. They decayed into these little cults and these religions and these primitive witchcraft practices. That's what happens when you break down from a main teaching and learning institution, gets fractured and destroyed and is not supported. it breaks out into all these little cults and fragments that start to pop up all over the world. In a lot of ways, because it is so natural, because it is part of the natural reality of a human, that these kind of energies and practices will always come out because it is natural. That's part of the natural world, and it easily manifests, and it keeps being proven time and time again. The literature is endless on this. And they want to tell you that it's not, that there's no proof of any of this, it's all mumbo. It's nonsense. There are studies after studies after studies done all over the world. It's just not true. That's lying propaganda done by people who are very convenient. There are explanations to all of it. There are scientists even that come out today that explain how this quantum physics, synapses in the brain project energy through the zero force world, and how these things manifest. There are scientific explanations, and they're just as good, if not better, than the other gobbledygook that's being stated out there from the God particle, or the God poo that proves, the God particle poo that proves that this is some sort of manifesting thing. Talk about a reach. Talk about extrapolation onto theories. Oh, if that was to be put in a cult context, they would think you were completely bozo. So with that, it gives you a good understanding of what the occult sciences are about without going into intimate detail and practices. I always recommend getting your core foundation going. That's the key to everything. Reading the core foundation booklets is essential. Getting into the actual course, which works, is essential. And from there, everything manifests itself and is built in. Once you understand that, you can function like an occult scientist, and you will get consistent results in a scientific manner that can be verified by you and even others if they're involved with you. Other than that, you're in a Mickey Mouse land of nonsense and Dungeons and Dragons perpetrated by a bunch of businesses that want to pick your pockets. Or you're listening to the fools on the other side that tell you you're just a delusional idiot. These are all traps. That's not what occult science is all about. And you need to get your information from a teaching institution and a nonprofit like the Guild is. So you have unbiased information and not getting it from a business. So with that, I want to thank you for listening. Question everything and believe nothing.